Dus ik ben Andries Reymer, ik werk voor Entertainment School. Ik heb, zoals ik net al heb gehoord, een aantal watertjes doorzwommen. Ik heb bij Komono gewerkt, ik weet niet of dat bekend is. Ja, voilà. Ik was daar de eerste werknemer. Dus ik heb dat samen met de 2 founders de eerste 3 jaar proberen drijvende te houden. Daarna ben ik naar Philips gaan werken, tv's ontwikkeld. Nieuwe concepten van leasing, van tv-leasing ontwikkeld en dat proberen te realiseren. Dat is jammer genoeg niet gelukt. Daarna ben ik bij Cirrus gaan werken, 2 jaar op additive manufacturing. Dus de technologische kennis van Cirrus, ik weet niet of Cirrus bekend is bij jullie? Ja. Oh, maar goed, ja, voilà. Ja. Dat is natuurlijk een afdeling van Cirrus. Cirrus is een breed technologisch expertisecentrum. Onder andere additive manufacturing hebben ze daar. Het interessante daar is dat ze Materialize of zo, die hebben 2 technologieën en heel veel machines, heel grote capaciteit. Bij Cirrus hebben ze 10 verschillende technologieën met heel beperkte capaciteit. Dus je kunt er ongelooflijk veel gaan testen. En mijn job was daar eigenlijk de meerwaarde van additive manufacturing bij een business gaan verdedigen of bepleiten. En daarna ben ik bij AMS begonnen in het expertisecentrum Business, Design en Innovatie. Wat wij doen is eigenlijk toegepast onderzoek. Gelinkt aan academisch onderzoek. Dus er zijn academici binnen Enterprise Management School die echt academisch onderzoek doen. Wij proberen dat toegepast te maken. En daar komt eigenlijk wat ik hier kon vertellen, komt eigenlijk uit zo'n toegepast onderzoek. Dat is het project Valerie van Value-Based Pricing. En dat is een methodologie die ontwikkeld is met allemaal verschillende stapjes, allemaal verschillende tools die je kunt doorlopen om tot een value-based pricing te komen. Alles start weliswaar bij value innovation. Value-based pricing als een elementje, als een saus achteraf over uw product gaan zwieren, dan zien we dat heel zelden werkt. Dat werkt misschien eenmalig, totdat je ziet dat wat je verkocht hebt als waarde niet de waarde kan leveren. Dus alles begint bij value innovation. Een hele mooie term, wat betekent dat nu? Value innovation, wat wij daarmee wat bedoelen is, dat je kunt dat eigenlijk langs 2 kanten gaan bekijken, een product. Langs deze kant kijk je daarvan intern in je organisatie. Je ziet je kosten, daarop je kosten pakt een marge, dat is je prijs. En dan moet je zien dat er genoeg waarde is naar je klant toe. Natuurlijk, je klant die staat langs deze kant en die ziet eigenlijk alleen die waarde. Die prijs en die kost, dat is minder belangrijk. Als die waarde hoog genoeg is, dan wordt de prijs letterlijk minst tweede belangrijk. Als de waarde laag is, als je een commodity product verkoopt met niet genoeg geperceived value voor de klant, dan kijkt hij eigenlijk erover en ziet hij naar de prijs. En dan gaat hij op prijs concurreren. Dus de eerste stap in heel het value-based pricing verhaal is value-based innovation. Je moet die waarde voor je klant hoog genoeg maken, zodat de prijs op de tweede plaats komt.
Vorig zeiden ze dat die value 10 keer groter moet zijn dan de kost, dan de prijs voor de klant.
Wel, dat is als je, ik denk dat komt van het idee dat je wilt gaan disrupten. Dat je bijvoorbeeld een WhatsApp, WhatsApp is 10 keer beter als sms. En dan pas kun je een heel marktsegment gaan veroveren. Als je maar 2 keer beter bent, dan is de kost van change, of de effort die een klant moet doen om te gaan veranderen, niet groot genoeg. Dus die een delta moet groot genoeg zijn om echt te gaan veranderen als klant. Nu, dat uw waarde 10 keer groter moet zijn als uw value, of als de prijs.
Value 10 keer groter dan de prijs.
Ja, dat is heel moeilijk te meten natuurlijk. Ja. Want uw prijs is iets vast en de waarde is de perceived value. Ja. En wat wij hier eigenlijk proberen te doen is die perceived value heel snel gaan vertalen naar een echte prijs die je daar tegen kunt plakken. Er zijn een paar zaken die we telkens malen terug zien komen, die daar in de weg staan. Heel dat verhaal vanuit de klant gaan kijken. Het eerste, en dat is misschien wel het belangrijkste, is competence blindness. Ik heb net verteld dat ik bij Philips heb gewerkt. Hier staat een heel mooie Philips TV, maar je ziet de achterkant. Ik zet die foto erbij omdat ik nog altijd niet, dat is nu ondertussen 5 jaar geleden dat ik daar gewerkt heb, nog altijd niet begrijp hoe dat komt dat wij met 20 ingenieurs de perfecte achterkant gingen maken. Ik snap het ongeveer, er zijn verschillende aspecten aan. Mijn baas had een team van 20 mensen. De voorkant ontwikkelen was gewoon een randje rond een scherm, dus daar had hem zijn mensen niet meer voor nodig. Maar die wilde wel zijn positie behouden in zijn bedrijf, etc. Dus allemaal de achterkant. Maar naar toegevoegde waarde voor de klant is dat nihil. Een gemiddelde klant kijkt 10 seconden naar zijn achterkant van zijn tv. Maar dus doordat je eigenlijk dat je vindt als bedrijf of als afdeling dat dat belangrijk is, kun je niks anders gaan doen. Als wij van die 20 ingenieurs er 2 hadden overgehouden om aan de achterkant te werken en er 18 anderen op nieuwe manieren van tv kijken, dan hadden wij misschien als Philips zijnde de Oculus Rift kunnen bedenken. Maar nu zijn we zo gefocust op wat jij denkt dat belangrijk is, dat je eigenlijk opportuniteiten gaat missen. Nieuwe waardekenmerken, nieuwe waarde-elementen voor je klanten gaat gaan missen. Dat noemen we competence blindness. Je ziet dat ook heel veel in software. Even misschien een rondje. Wie zit hier allemaal in software services? 1, 2, 3. En wat doe jij? Jij zet de vreemde eend in de bijt.
Ja. Subscription box, een spel dat we maandelijks uitsturen. Er komt een doos met een cold case en een opgeloste moordzak. En dan krijg je maandelijks zo een case toegestuurd.
Een game eigenlijk. Ah ja, oké, cool. Maar dat is ook een dienst, maar niet software.
Ah wel, ja, we hebben ook dus het is ook de bedoeling, dus je krijgt fysieke spullen in de doos zelf. Maar het grote deel gaat online, gebeurt het onderzoek. We hebben een chatbot ontwikkeld, dat is zo, dient als assistent om je te helpen als er vast is.
Ja.
En ook een app dat we ontwikkeld hebben.
Oké, dus het is... Ja. Oké, cool. Maar dus wat je heel vaak ziet ook in softwareontwikkeling, is dat er of in andere ontwikkelingen ook, dat er een enorme featurelist wordt ontwikkeld. Want dat is belangrijk voor de ingenieurs die erachter zitten. Die vinden dat belangrijk dat er iets gemeten kan worden, bijvoorbeeld. En dan wordt er daar al aan gewerkt om een feature, dat wordt gemeten. Maar eigenlijk, de willingness to pay voor uw klant daarvoor is heel laag. En dan zeggen ze, ja, maar niemand wil betalen voor onze software. Misschien hebben de verkeerde features in uw software gestoken. En dat hangt heel hard hier aan, competence blindness. Een ander element waar dat we naar moeten gaan kijken is dat we eigenlijk in een maatschappij leven waar dat we te maken hebben met commoditized customers. Dus klanten die eigenlijk getraind zijn om in commodities te gaan denken. Als je een yoghurtje moet gaan kiezen in de supermarkt, ze lijken allemaal op elkaar, ze zijn allemaal even groot verpakt, ze hebben allemaal dezelfde smaak, ze zijn allemaal per 4 of per 6 of per 8 verpakt. Het enige waar je op kunt gaan kijken is prijs. Ze zijn zo gelijkend dat het enige verschil nog prijs gaat zijn. En dan zit je in een commodity. En eigenlijk wat je wilt gaan doen als je een value-based pricing wilt gaan hanteren, is net eruit breken en een soort engaged customer gaan krijgen. Dat je net een klant krijgt die voor u kiest voor bepaalde elementen in uw offering of in uw product. Dat je net daar anders in bent dan de rest en dat hem daarom naar u komt. Niet omdat je de laagste prijs hebt. Dus dat is ook een heel belangrijke, de engaged customer. Makkelijker gezegd dan gedaan. Hoe doe je dat nu? De methodologie die wij hier ontwikkeld hebben, die vertrekt vanuit kwalitatief gebruikersonderzoek. Welgekomen, zet u. No worries. Spreken jullie wel Nederlands? Engels, ja, kan ook. Dan we'll switch. Ja, dat ook eerst voor de rest. So, what we propose as the way of finding of surpassing this competence blindness and finding these engaged customers is qualitative user research. Who does research to their customers? Yeah. How do you do that? Interviews?
I circulate with them and I ask, what do you want me to improve?
Okay. Is that that's a good start already? That's a very good start already. Do you also ask them how much they want to pay for the features they propose?
That's a discussion that's going to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah, because what you see happening if you just randomly talk to people, they want everything. This would be nice, this would be nice, this would be nice.
We ask to prioritize, we say, like, what do you want?
But still, everything is needed and urgently, and you can make a prioritization with this first and then that. But if you ask for how much would you pay for it, then I think your list will look different.
It's a process. I think in B2B it's a different process than B2C, because in B2B the bottom line counts. So if you ask 10 euros, they are going to look, can we ask 20 euros to our end customers for this?
But if you're in B2B, you're in B2B?
Yeah.
Do you also talk to the end customer or only to your customer?
Yeah, I talk to the end customer as well. Yeah.
Because in fact, I think that's what we propose is qualitative user research, and this is really what you do, getting insights from your customers, from your stakeholders. But it goes beyond your original customer. If you're in B2B, it also goes to the end customer, because somewhere there needs to be value for the end customer. And if you know what these end customers has needs, what the needs are, you can translate that to your own offering, to your intermediate customer. Qualitative user research is what you it starts, or it can be an interview. I'm just going to briefly go through what we see there. It's an exploratory research, so you're going to go exploring, researching, but not to the obvious things. What we want to do in the qualitative research is really underlying reasons, opinions, and motivations of the customers. So the most important question in qualitative research is why or how? Not what, really. Because from the why and the how, you can reason yourself what would be a good solution for it. So it focuses on three main aspects: the context where your customer or end customer is in, the customer itself, and then we're talking about segments, customer segments, and the people that are in these segments, and the interaction with your product or service. These three things should be the main focus point in your research. An example. If you just came out of this desert after 10 days wandering, being lost, and I would offer you this beautiful bottle of water, how much would you pay?
Whatever.
Yeah, really, right? Everything you have, you pay for it. If you're in a supermarket and the water is piled up like this, how much would you pay?
I drink from the tap.
Right. So you start looking to price, and then if your basement is underwater, you will actually pay to get the water out. And this is just an example of the context, and it's really put on bottles, like we say in Belgium. So it's a big difference. It's not the reality, but it gives you an idea of it's important to know the context of your customer. Is he in the desert, or is his basement underwater, if you want to sell him water? Another thing is the interaction with your product. This is a research that we did for a client of us, and they make these solar shades, right? And they have a beautiful product, and they have in their factory a nice hall where they can test it. And they do test the products, but they keep getting complaints that their product is not user-friendly. What we see is they test it, but they don't test it in real life. So we took them out to a hobbly grass field with sun shining in their eyes and wind blowing, and then it gets a whole lot more difficult to install this sun shading. And this is the interaction. How do people interact with your service or product? That's what we really want to research in qualitative user research, and it focuses on the bottom two, the tacit and latent knowledge. Do you know what it means, tacit, latent knowledge, or needs?
Yeah, if you ask a customer the things that they don't tell you that they want because maybe they don't know it, or
Yeah, exactly. That's the latent need. So if you just ask them, they will tell you the explicit things that they need or want or know. That's the top.
Faster horses.
Exactly. That's it. So that's explicit. And then the second thing is you can observe something that people do. They don't even know that they do it. Like a painter that puts his brush on his paint pot bucket. He won't really tell you that because it's so obvious for him. It doesn't seem weird for him. He always done it. He will do it. But if you ask what can be better, he will never think of that habit because you should observe it. And then if you go one step further, that's tacit knowledge. Tacit is really something it's hard to explain. Like for example, explain me how to drive or ride a bike. You can say, okay, get on the saddle and put your feet like this. But it's a complex thing to do riding a bike. It has to do with equilibrium, with your equilibrium, and speed, and you have to steer and you have to look around you. It's hard to explain. Or how does a carrot taste? So it's hard. That's tacit knowledge. You can get tacit needs by combining different aspects, like combining something what they say with something you know that you observed, with something you know that's happening around in the world. And if you combine those, that's what we need, what we call tacit knowledge. And latent is what's your name, sir? Bert explained really that it's a need that your customer not even recognized yet. And the famous one is Henry Ford, who said, if I asked my customers, they wanted faster horses. No, they didn't want faster horses, they want faster movement, being able to transport themselves faster, and that's when the car existed. So that's really the bottom line from this qualitative user research, getting insights in these two. Because what's interesting, if you find something that's in the letter 2, you're very hard to copy because it's knowledge that's not right there in the world. If you compete and if your unique selling proposition is in the explicit or observable range, your competitors can really find it very easily. So if you do user research and you do it well, you will find, hopefully, something in the letter 2, and then you're very hard to copy. Now, how do you do that? We propose generative sessions. That means that you have a minimum of 3 types of user research, so you can do kind of triple triangulation. Triple triangulation, is that something familiar? By combining 3 types of research by 3 types of researchers, you minimize bias and just random coincidence. So if you want to go to the latter 2, you will have to do research very well. I will briefly take on some ways to do research, and then we go further. Okay, so the first one, observation, interviews, focus groups, and the rest is less interesting right now, but you can have a look at it. Observation, it's important there that there are different types of observation. The first one is fly on the wall, where you really put a camera somewhere and you let people do their thing with your product. You don't intervene, you're not visible. They should feel at home or anywhere where they like natural environment of using your product. And that will tell you a lot, because they will just do anything they will do normally. They will get in their nose and then use your toys, I don't know, and then they will stick together, and they won't tell you that, and they won't do it if you're there, but if you install a fly on the wall, they will do that. Another version, or what I want to say is, if you do that, or if you do observation in general, it's important to do it in the natural habitat of usage of your product or service. If I want to research a lion, I can go to the zoo, and it's very easy. I see the lion, and I can see what he does, but it's not a natural habitat. So if you want to research a lion, go to Africa and get him in his natural habitat. But that makes it hard to do, because I don't know if you have a service, you can do it everywhere. It's hard to observe. Shadowing is the next less pure form of observation, so you will follow him, but they are aware that you are following him. So they will already start behaving differently. Thinking aloud is very popular nowadays, where you ask people to think aloud while using your product. And a famous example now is the unboxing videos on YouTube, where I received this package, I'm opening it now. There's a nice box inside, and they will just tell what they are doing, but it's very interesting for you to try to get in their head while using your product. But it's of course very explicit. They can only say what they explicitly think. If you are in a digital world, then A/B testing is also a very nice way to observe your customers. When you have two versions of your website with two ways of calls to action, for example, you can observe the behavior of your customers in which model of which way of organizing your call to action works best. So it's a newer way of observing your customers with heat maps and stuff on the website. You can do a lot to observe your customer. It can bring very, very useful information. If you go to an interview, so you did also interviews, right?
Yeah.
It's very important if you want to draw conclusions from your interview. It's very important that your interview is somehow structured. So you use roughly the same questions to the same type of people. Because otherwise, you say, I hear that there, and there they said the same thing. But maybe the context or the question before they said it is completely different, and you will draw conclusions from really not comparable results. So if you do an interview, it should be structured in a way, so you should know which questions you want to ask, and preferably which order. So you don't create any bias by asking a question and wouldn't that be great? Yes. You see, they wanted to. You know what I mean? Then if you're doing the interview, it's very important to ignore own experiences or opinions. I think that's great. You create bias, right? This is shit. Stay focused and optimistic in the interview. Focus on the interview. Focus on the questions you want to ask. And optimistic, even if they think your service or product is shit, say thank you for that feedback. That's very helpful for us. Draw no conclusions for them. So if they say your product is shit, so you won't order it, that's not what they say. They say your product is shit, but maybe they still want to order it. So it's better to ask another question. Why is it shit? What would you do in this situation? And then let them say, I won't order it, or I will stop my subscription. If you draw that conclusion for them, it's not right. Okay? And the last thing, and that's very important, ask why a lot. Constantly these why and how, because that will lead you deeper in the tacit and latent knowledge. If they say your product is shit and you say okay, and you don't follow up with why, or how do you think so, or how can we improve, or how do you come to this conclusion, it won't tell you anything. And one tip if you're doing an interview is pause. So you ask a question, they reply, then just count till 5 in your head, and like 60-70% of the time there will come a second answer to clarify or justify their first answer. And if you in the meantime get in with another question, you will miss it. And the second part is often the most valuable part. So pause, let them speak. Everything that they say you can use. So let them speak, pause for them to answer. That's what I want to say from interviews. And if you really want to dig into it and create a structured interview that you want to, it's important to play with the types of questions you want to ask. If you constantly ask, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? It becomes very boring for your respondents, and they will switch off after 3 questions. So it's interesting to have some, what's your ideal, and then why? Do you think this prevention is better than the other one? It's a leading question, but it can assist you in getting knowledge from this answer, and it can break the routine in the interviews. So that's important. Another way of doing research is the focus group. Is someone involved in focus groups? Yeah.
We had a couple of playing sessions with 4 people who played a game, and we observed them and heard what feedback they gave.
Yeah. So it's observation focus group mix. Yeah, because this focus group is actually a group interview. The advantage is that you have quicker results, quicker in the sense of when you're doing the interview, you have 6 to 8, maybe 10 people around the table, so you have 10 meanings, 10 opinions in one session. The negative side is that it takes a long time often to get the right 10 people in the room. All agendas should be synced and they should be there, so it takes a long time to organize a focus group, but if you have it, it's quick to get feedback. Another negative point is that it's less deep, so you can't ask why constantly to all of them, because then you're doing an 8-hour focus group, and that's not how it works. So in the focus group, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, so you can ask why, but not everyone can answer. So it goes less deep than the one-on-one interview. And very important, of course, the peer pressure that occurs in focus groups does not occur in one-on-one interviews. So if one says in your focus group, your product is shit, then the other person who really likes the product, he has to have balls to stand up and say, no, I really like your product. It often doesn't happen like that they stand up and say, no, that's really good. They will still say, I rather like it, but they won't say, it's very good. So this peer pressure that occurs in focus groups is very important, and you should be aware of that. Don't touch the mic. There are 2 types of focus groups. You can have homogeneous and heterogeneous. So homogeneous is if you have all the same type of people in the room, like all buyers of your product. Heterogeneous is that you have all stakeholders that are involved in buying your product are on a table. So you have a buyer, but you have a CEO, you have a user, you have an installer, and these are 2 types of focus groups. The homogeneous is interesting because you have a lot of same people that have information for you. Heterogeneous is interesting, so you can see the interaction between the different stakeholders. Right? An interesting way to do focus group is Lego Serious Play. I don't know if that's known by you guys. It's created by Lego, and it's a facilitated meeting way, and you can really build your ideal product or ideal solution. It's a steps process, and it helps to get everyone's mind clear. It's an interesting way to organize focus groups. I just throw it in. And all this research is really focused on getting insight from your customer, because Shakespeare said it, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but the value you deliver is also in the eye of the beholder. And now we're back here, right, where we started. You can look from the inside to your customer, but your customer looks from the value first towards the price, towards the cost. He doesn't care about cost. He doesn't care about price as long as the value is high enough. And this qualitative user research is the best way to really get insight in where the value is for the customer. Let's do a quick scan. Who has, you are all startups, right? So the combination is a specific combination. And the second thing is the next best alternative. What's next? If he doesn't use our product, what's next? and the willingness to pay. That's basically the price orientation. Price realization is your sales pricing team, the selling value, not selling a product, but selling values, selling a solution. And how do you get it there? How do you get your solution to your customers? So if you can fill it out quickly, then we can see where you guys are. Yeah.
Customers easy to accept and buy discount request. Wie accept eigenlijk? Is het meer aanvaardbaar voor de klant of voor het bedrijf?
Voor het bedrijf. Dat is de price getting is dit, hè? Dus dat is intern voor het bedrijf. Als jij een verkoop doet, of een verkoper voor u gaat iets verkopen, is hij dan heel makkelijk in staat om zijn prijzen aan te passen om het goedkoper te verkopen, bijvoorbeeld.
Ja, maar in service options.
Maar dat is een andere manier. Dus dat is in plaats van korting te geven, dat je meer diensten kunt leveren. Dat je zegt, kijk, we verkopen het voor deze prijs, maar wat ik doe, ik doe er 2 maanden gratis support bij. Dat is eigenlijk ook een korting, maar niet in geld. Qua cashflow naar u is er geen korting, komt er niet minder binnen. En dat is dat idee.
Ik moet zeggen dat het best van die zaken die eigenlijk nog niet bepaald hebben.
Nee, maar dat is ook helemaal normaal in de start-up. Ik ben ook met een project rond groei van KMO's bezig en er zijn verschillende stappen die je neemt natuurlijk. Deze is wel voorzien voor corporates, maar ik wou het hier toch een keer meegeven, omdat het interessant kan zijn in de verdere groei. Als het niet van toepassing is, dan is het zo. Als er iemand klaar is, dan mogen we misschien al eens zeggen hoeveel dat je uitkomt. Als je ze optelt.
Getting 10 en setting 8.
Setting 8. Getting 10. Dus je staat getting op 67%, dat is toch al vrij goed. En setting 52, dat is ongeveer in het midden. Zouden we beter kunnen doen. Nog iemand?
Price setting heb ik
4. 4? Dat moet ik niet berekenen. Dat is redelijk laag. Dat wil zeggen dat je eigenlijk weinig inzicht hebt in je klantensegmenten en de willingness to pay. Ja.
Dat is toch zo.
Ja, voilà. Het is gevalideerd en getting?
8.
8, dan zit het hogere segment, ja. Zijn er nog hier die rond zijn? Misschien nog eentje doen?
Deze?
Ja. Tel maar op, hoeveel hebben we? 8 in price getting. Ja. Dat zit ook in het hogere segment. Allee, 8, ja, het is ongeveer in het midden, 8. Er is geen goed en slecht. Dus dat wil zeggen dat je al redelijk goed geëquipeerd bent om de prijs die je wilt krijgen, eruit te krijgen. Het is niet zwart of wit, hè. Nee. Wel, we zeggen dat het summum is, als je hier zit, dat je helemaal van boven, I'll switch back to English. So the ideal situation, of course, is that you can, that you know or have insight in the willingness to pay, so you can put the price really to what the value is and the willingness to pay is of your customer on top, and that you have a process in place where you have the power to get this price that the customer wants to pay in your business. Like if you know that your customer wants to pay €20 for something, but you have a shitty sales process and discounts and stuff, you only get 10 out of it. That's partly good because you already know what the willingness to pay is, but then you should focus on your sales process and get the value that you deliver and the willingness to pay from your customer back in. So that's it's not rocket science. Like it doesn't say that if you're in the middle 50% that you have 50 that you get from the 20 euro that he wants to pay, that you only get 10. It doesn't work like that. But it gives you an insight of you have margin to improve on that section. Okay. Is anyone else ready to do it, or should we continue with the presentation?
Ik had weinig bij beginning, only 3.
Yeah.
And setting 8.
Okay.
So the problem with the getting is that we don't. It's a fixed price. We are already in business, so they got 3 options to pay, but there's not really a discount model or.
But that's in fact it's good that there's not a discount model.
Yeah, and so the customer can choose for a monthly subscription, so that's a higher price.
Yeah.
And they can choose for a 3 months prepay. That's a little lower in price, and then a year subscription. So then that price per box is lowest.
That's interesting, because what you see here is I think the product you get is the same.
Yeah.
So you only differentiate on price.
Yeah.
And
you only got one product, so it's.
Yeah, but still, you might think of putting your price model different. That not the only thing changing is the price, because then you're creating a commodity and you're pushing customers to look not to the value you deliver, but to the price. If you can say pay one time, you have a one-time access, but not access to the app, or I don't know, or limited amount of persons or things you can play with, something like that. And then if you can add value, you pay more, and add another value, you pay even more.
So you suggest we keep the price about the same, but we can add some merchandising for people who get a.
No, I don't suggest that. I suggest you step away from a model where the price is the driver, and switch to a model where you add value as a driver. And for example, look to a good example is Dropbox. You have a free account, you get 2 GB of storage, and you can have access. If you pay, you have a different value that you get, right? And then you have not 2 GB, but 1,000 GB. So they did the research. They know people who want to pay for Dropbox are people often in the creative sector. They often work with Apple. What is a negative point of Apple? That they have limited storage space on their computers. So what they need is more space to get the big files and that come together with creative work often. So their second segment is a creative freelancer who wants big storage space, and that's where they want to pay for. Not because it's a monthly subscription or you have to pay it in advance. That's easy for you, but it does not bring value to your customer. And then the third model by Dropbox is really focused on corporates, where they don't even speak about storage anymore. It's just as much as you need, but you pay per user. And that's interesting because bigger corporations have more cash and can pay more to Dropbox than smaller companies, but they pay the same per user. And then you add value to, because then you have you can get erased files back, you have 24/7 support, stuff like that. You add value, and then you can drive the price. The model that you have is focused on price, and you're making your product a commodity, basically. A short intermezzo. No worries. Let's see. All right, so we went through that. See it as a guideline. The third one I have as well. It's about pricing team. So how the price is put, who is involved in the pricing process. I have it here. If you're interested, come and get it afterwards. It can help you. So I started by saying value-based pricing starts with value innovation. You cannot just put a value-based price as a sauce upon an existing product. You have to know where your customer is putting the value on, what is valuable for your customer and where does he want to pay for. And then you can get to value-based pricing. I heard last week you had a session about price, so this, I don't know who attended that session from Nick Bouckaert. Yeah, so then this will sound familiar. You get basically 3 options to do the pricing. One is cost plus. Basically, this is from a physical product, but it just calculates all the costs you have to create and deliver your product. You get the margin that you want to earn, and ta-da! Magically, the price appears, right? Negative point of this model is that it basically looks like this. It's a stack of costs that is not really fixed in time. If we designed a television for Philips, we calculated the cost of a back cover, let's say, at €3 because we were going to sell 1 million televisions of this model. We started designing, still €3 per back cover. After a while, sales comes back and says, forecast is bad, we won't sell 1 million parts, we will sell 500,000. Immediately the cost of this back cover changes to €6 and whole your plan can collapse. In services, it's a little different, but you also have changing cost because your context is changing. So if you are using the cost plus model, you should be aware that it's a fragile model. Second part that is interesting to know, that if you are in a cost plus model, you have competitors that have less cost than you, especially if you operate in a global market. So if your competitors do the same exercise as you did, they will end up with a lower cost and they don't have to do anything for it. It's just because their costs are different. So if this is your only model, you're basically screwed in many ways. It's good to do this exercise because it's good to have view on your costs, and you should have a basic margin to make a living, but only relying on this model is not very smart. A second model is competition based. So what we mean here is you look towards competition and see, okay, they do roughly the same, how much do they pay? Well, how much do they ask? And then ask, depending on how you perceive your product, a little bit higher or a little bit lower, or you want to enter the market and get the market, so you put in low and get the market. Looking to competition. Again, it's not wrong, it's not bad to do it, but if you do this as an only source of your pricing model, then you often end up in a price war. And the negative point is that also you have no differentiation, because it's a weird behavioral thing that we have in our mind, that's confirmation bias. And that is, if you see something that someone else does, you want to do it the same or roughly the same. So you probably will add a feature because your competition has it and add another one, but then you are actually more similar to your competition than different, right? So the playing field and the commodity will grow if you use this model than another model, right? Is that clear? The third one is value-based pricing. And that's where we are, where we're talking about now. Really getting insights from your customer, getting the willingness to pay clear, and start from there in developing and pricing. It was a question. If you saw these two pricing models, how would you define price?
Attentie. Dit is de maandelijkse test van de omroep.
Ik dacht dat ze het antwoord gingen geven.
Bij slechte hoorbaarheid gelieve ster 1, 2, 3 te informeren.
Great.
Attention. Nous procédons au test mensuel de l'installation d'appel d'urgence et des sirènes. En cas de mauvaise audibilité, veuillez en faire part à étoile 1, 2, 3.
Attention, attention. This is the monthly test of the public address and alarm systems. To report poor audibility, please dial **123.
Great.
So what's
Seems-
price?
So yeah, if you saw the two pricing models that I explained, what is the definition of price?
It's the value of it's what the customer is willing to pay for the value you offer.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to get to. Basically, if you look to the first two pricing options or pricing models, you wouldn't come to that conclusion, because price is a sum of cost, is what your competition does. But basically the price, the real definition you should have in mind, is not what you think you can charge, but it's what your customer is willing to pay. And there we are in value-based pricing. What is the customer willing to pay for your value that you deliver? And then we're back here. Instead of designing a very nice back cover, bring meaningful innovation and meaningful features. And instead of working in the commodity market, look towards your engaged customers. A quick round. I heard you calling earlier, and you said raise the volume. A quick test. So their costs and their income. You can lower the costs with 1%, and you can raise the income with 1%. What has the biggest effect on your omzet, your revenue?
No, the cost, bring the cost down, that has a bigger impact.
Let's start the other way around. What has the lowest impact?
Raising the price, because it depends on the elasticity of the price.
Yeah.
But if there's the bullwhip effect, if you lower your operational costs, that has a bullwhip effect in the rest of your company. So I would say start with lowering your costs.
Yeah. Well, anyone else? Another idea? What has the lowest impact? So you can raise it on revenue. So you can raise the income part with 1%, volume price with 1%, each of one, and lower each of the cost with 1%. What has the biggest impact on your revenue? So Standard & Poor's did a research on this topic with 1,500 companies, and they saw that volume has the lowest impact. So if you raise volume with 1%, it only has 3% effect on your revenue. Next, fixed cost. So lowering fixed cost has 6% impact on your revenue. Then variable cost, and the biggest one is price. That's why we're all here, right? Because price is important.
How do you increase revenue when you reduce your cost? I don't really understand that.
No, it's in the balance, is indeed.
Operational excellence, use more efficient.
Because your product costs less, so you earn more.
But then it's not the revenue.
No, it's in it's your balance sheet het is niet echt income. Revenue is income, hè. Het is echt
Margin.
ja, margin, ja.
Profit.
Yeah, profit. Profit indeed that's the biggest indeed. It's the impact on profit instead of revenue. True. Good point.
But here you're making abstraction of the elasticity.
Well, that's true. That's the second point, because Omar has also written this. And I took it from Omar's book 1 to 11. It looks nice, 1 to 11, but in all honesty, you must say that the research that has been done says between 8 and 11%. So if you go 2 back, you see that the variable cost can have the same impact as price, but the variable cost is between 6 and 9%. So, and how it works is you can look for yourself, but indeed what you say is very important. It has to do with price elasticity. So don't just start raising your price. You really should know your price elasticity. How much customers are going away are not buying anymore if you raise the price? How many customers start buying if you lower the price? So this equation of price elasticity is very important. Your optimal price point might not be the highest price. So those two things, you cannot just remember the 1 in 11%. You also have to remember the price elasticity. Yes.
Concerning the 1 to 11%, does that mean that the average margin is around 10%? So
Average is between 8 and 11%.
8 and 11.
Yes. It really depends on
the raise in margin.
the raise in profit.
Yeah,
Is the raise in profit, but isn't that related to the margin of your business model? So, I mean,
Explain yourself clearer, please.
I mean, if you have a very low variable cost
Mhm.
and actually a low cost and high margin, if you increase the volume by 1%, you will increase the revenue more than if you just increase the price.
No, that's true. This is a general rule of thumb, and it comes from research from 1,500 companies. Of course, there are differences, but this is the mean. You have to do the same calculation for yourself. Indeed, if you have virtually no cost, if you sell an online, I don't know, something where you just can have something in one server, your variable cost will not rise significantly if you sell more. If your variable cost is rising significantly by selling more, then it's different, right? So it's indeed specific per company, but in general, it's mostly from price raise, even with services actually. I just read an interesting story from this guy who's selling, I think he's a graphic designer or something. And he has also several models. And for the first time in many years that he's working, he shuffled with his pricing models. And by doing that, he could also increase the price. And it's the first time in all the years that he's been working that he saw the biggest leap in profit. And it's also a service thing where he doesn't have much costs. So it's true for service as well, but I think indeed in lesser numbers. But you can do the calculation for yourself. If you, I don't know what your business is.
Oh, service.
Service, yeah, but what kind of service? Like, is it labor-intensive service or is it?
It's software for restaurant management.
For what management?
Restaurants.
Restaurant management, yeah. But I can imagine, for example, like variable cost is also cost of sales. Like if you are selling more, you will have more people on the road. It's also a cost. So it's always somewhere raising. If you have more customers, you probably have more servers or more development or more customer service. There are many costs involved in service as well. But it's the bottom line here, what I want to say is that from research comes that two main things are very important, and that's mainly variable cost and price. Those have the biggest impact on your profit, which is it's not something very new, but okay. But you should calculate, or you should have a view on your price elasticity as well before just changing your. So someone has a view on the price elasticity of their product yet? Because you just are starting. Do you know how much, if you raise that price with 10%, for example, how many customers you will lose?
It's hard to say.
Hard to say, of course. It's also one of the hardest things to calculate or get an insight in. But it's really some trying and seeing. And if you have a service and you can do A/B testing, and you have a B website where it's 10% higher, how many clicks do you lose in comparison with the A website? It's very interesting to see. And have a C website in between, and in that way you can get to the optimal price point. Could come to. Oh, I should speak with two words. For whole this process, so we developed this methodology in the research project that we did. It starts from buying personas, so customer segments, Do you use that? Customer segments, yeah, okay. The second part is basically getting from this user segments, customer segments, listing the quality dimensions, the value dimensions. For each segment, what is it that those customers are looking for? If we go back to the example of Dropbox, for example, the first segment is free. The freeloaders, people just want to get stuff secured somewhere. But the second segment is really freelancers. What do they value? They often work with Apple. They have less storage space. So what they really value is storage space. So you go from 2 GB to 1 TB, and a huge leap, and you have customer support, and you can get files that are suddenly disappeared, you can retrace. That are 3 really big value elements for these freelancers. That does not come out of the blue, it's research. They saw the usage of their service with these type of persons. And they did it in this kind of way. Listing the possible value dimensions, and it goes it can be on the product itself, but also on company level. Like your company isn't secure or isn't trustworthy enough. So then that's important for us, so we won't pay you. You see what I get? So it's the company, the brand, your service you deliver, and your product. It has 3 levels of value dimension. And what we do here is list all these value dimensions, what could be of value of your customer in our product, in our service, how important is it, and you cannot put everything 100%, you have to choose. There can only be 100%, and all the rest is less. It's not that it's less important, but one thing is the most important. And then score yourself and your next best alternative. How do you think that your customers perceive these aspects? And the whole trick is in getting this assumption that's inside your company validated through customer research, user research. And then you can really say, we think that, for example, space or service towards your client is the most important, but really in the interviews we did, we saw that, I don't know, the color of the button is the most important. And this is a tool that you can use. If you want a copy, drop me a mail, or you can download it free from our website. It's Creative Commons, so you can use it whatever in any way you like. And then you get, for example, this result. This is an exercise Cirque du Soleil did. Do you know Cirque du Soleil? Yeah, probably, I think. So they listed all kind of value dimensions that they saw in their customer segments, right? Then they said, okay, this is roughly how we think it's important. Well, this is already the facts poster, so this is validated, and they see that the latter are the most important, and they also see that their competitors, they have 2 competitors, they score very good perceived on the first ones, less on this, and at the bottom basically there is no competition, they don't do it. And what you then can, as an action can do, is just eliminate all these features, because they're not important for your segment. You are not scored very well by your customers, so why not create the latter ones? And that's also a part blue ocean strategy, of course, that comes in there. Really looking where your competition is and shifting to a blue ocean. And this can help for that as well. But the middle part, how important is it? Is important to know towards your value and your willingness to pay of your customer. For the most important things, they're often more willing to pay. That's what you can do with this tool. And then indeed you can shift your resources, like I explained earlier, right? A quick way towards innovation, because if you start innovating, so you saw from your customers ways that can trigger innovation, like the letter 3 in the slide. it's interesting for yourself to start thinking about the 10 types of innovation. This is from Dublin, huge research as well, where they came out. And they basically say there are 10 types to innovate. The middle ones are very obvious: product performance, product system. The wider ones are less obvious. Now, if I ask you, where is the most money put in innovation? Where is, in these 10 types, where do they put the most effort in, generally speaking? Right. So basically those two. It even reaches through the sky. There's how much amount of money and resources they put in product performance and product system. But if you then look to the cumulative value creation over the last 15 years, what do you see? That profit model, networking, structure, and on the other side, customer engagement are actually way higher than the cumulative value created by the product performance itself. So if you start innovating from these insights you have from your customer, you can quickly make quick wins by product performance and product systems tweaks, but you can have long-term benefits if you translate these features, product features, into a new business model or a new structure of getting the money in. And why is it that they put so much innovation effort in these two? Because it's short term. It's very quick and easy. You can implement a new feature over a year, and you can get to your bosses and your boardroom and say, yeah, we did some innovation. The other ones, like brand engagement, it's not done in a year. It's a long-term process. You have to invest in it. Change your business model, your network, your processes. There are much longer ways, longer efforts to put in to get results from. But the cumulative value that you get out of it is also much higher. So that's something to take into account. And then we get to value capture innovation. Because we started with with customer research. We get from them insights on what elements they think is of value for them, right? This value you can use to innovate. You can use to get your prices, because you know the willingness to pay from this value. But then you have to capture this value as well. And then we are talking about profit model, network structure, and then in these types of elements. And a good example of value capture innovation is Nespresso. I don't know if this is Nespresso. Yeah, it is. If you go and look on what elements their innovation is based on, it's partially product and product performance. They have a special product in place for their coffee, but what they actually sell is the coffee. But they also changed the way, the unit of selling. They're not selling a kilogram of coffee. They're selling you a perfect cup of coffee. That's what they're selling. And that's why they can charge. How much more expensive is coffee from Nespresso?
It's like 5 times the price.
Yeah, exactly, 6 times the price. Yeah. So if you go and have a look at the website of a general wholesaler,
And this is better.
well, it's debatable, but you can see the amount of price per kilo listed, right? If you see on the website, you have all the different competition, but Nespresso is not there. Why is that? Because their price is 6 times more. And they don't want to be in there. So if you go back to these, the business model is different because you have to buy a machine and you have to buy separate pads and you have to go to their separate store. But this is all included in one package of innovation because the channel to deliver this product is also different, because otherwise they would never be able to charge 6 times more than the rest, because it's not that different. So you see, the brand is different, customer engagement is different, channel is different, the product and product system is different, Also the product, business model, the structure, and the process.
It's actually the printer model that they use. Like the printer ink.
Not really. It partially is the same, but I think the printer model is really installed base, razor blade. You basically get the printer for free, and then you're stuck with the printer and you have to buy expensive cartridges. But it's indeed, the ink is the most expensive fluid in the world. You pay 18 euros for, I don't know, 6 milliliters, not even. So it's very, very expensive. But it's more installed base than what Nespresso has. Nespresso is a really broad innovation model. It's partially the installed base because they have the products that you sell, and if you have it in your home, you will sell it. But they put more effort in the brand engagement and the channel. Yeah. So that's the thing, and if you then look to how do they come to this kind of innovation, how do they come to this willingness to pay? Because you have to create a customer base that wants to pay 6 times the price for the same stupid commodity that coffee is. How do you get there? And then they come to a research that they did that people are willing to pay for good coffee, but they don't want the hassle that comes with it. They want to buy coffee, but they want an experience. They offer an experience with it. And then if you have these features listed, you come to, I don't know, who has an espresso here in the house, at the home? Yeah, you have one? It's not many people are willing to pay as much for this type of coffee. So they have a special segment in the market who are willing to pay for this brand image, this coffee without hassle, it's clean, and then you can charge more. An interesting, another study that I want to talk about is willingly overpricing your product. And research has been done and they saw that if you are in a supermarket, for example, and you have to choose between the yogurts that I explained earlier, they all look the same. They all have the same shape, the same tastes, the same quantities. The only thing that's different is the price. Now, they did research to that, if you willfully overprice your product, people will remember more the features that you have. And then they say if you willfully overprice between 50 and 80%, you have the greatest benefit. Not benefit in sales, that relates to sales immediately, but if you have features that relate to the values of your customer segment, then the sales can occur. You see where I'm getting at? So by willfully overpricing, people say, why is this so expensive? And then they take it, and then they start reading what features make it worth that it's so expensive. And if these features are carefully selected, linking to the willingness to pay in the value elements of your customers, then they will buy it. So by willfully overpricing, you actually get the attention of potential customers, and if your value elements are the right ones for them, they will actually buy it. The what? Veblen? I don't know what that is. Oh, that's possible.
Sorry, when you say overpricing, you mean in comparison with the concurrency?
Yeah, with the competitors indeed.
But in time, it's not an increase in time.
No. It's just like you have a yogurt pot that costs 30 cents, and you put 50% extra, between 50 and 80%, and then people will. It's been studied that in this price range, the most effect of really grabbing the attention and remembering features. But then, of course, if you do that and your features aren't in line with what your customer wants, you really lose. You lose more than you gain at that point. So you cannot do the one without the other.
It's the model of iPhone.
Yeah, partially. I think iPhone is a. Well, they sell an ecosystem. It's interesting. I had a colleague of mine.
By far the biggest margin of anyone.
Yeah, but it's not. They don't sell just a phone. They sell an image. They sell the service around it, and they sell a whole lot of convenience. My colleague, his phone died, and I'm an Android adept, and that's an interesting story as well. Because which phone is this? Which brand is it? It's interesting. They all look alike, right? You can't tell. So how do they compete? They look the same. They do the same thing. So you have to get the attention somewhere, and that you can do with overpricing. And then you start looking, how much? What features are in there? This is Zuck, by the way. Never heard of it, but I just want to say I wanted to convince my colleague whose iPhone died to buy an Android phone because I believe that Android delivers much more value for less price. But he in the end just bought the Apple because he says they have my data. If I buy a new iPhone, half an hour later or 10 minutes later, are up and running again. And this hassle-free, that's what iPhone also sells, and it's included in you get it for free. But it's in the price, and it works good with your MacBook and your iWatch, and it's the whole ecosystem that's in it. So it's more complicated than just this story.
Yeah.
I agree. It's fine. We can disagree.
I doubt it, because we have the same functionalities with Android, but maybe it's a little bit more complicated, but not too much.
So high switching cost.
Yeah, that's the thing. So they know if you are Android or iPhone customer, your cost to switch to another device is less than the difference. Yeah, well, that's the thing. They sell the image.
Yeah, and also that actually it's usually more hassle-free to stay in the ecosystem instead
Of course.
mixing it up. For example, my sons have iPad, which I monitor the store. But if you have an Apple device, it's easy. They say, okay, I want this. You can just approve and it's okay. While if you don't have an Apple device, it's currently my situation, I actually have to on the iPad say, okay, now I approve, and then I have to validate through all kind of loops. It takes much more time to validate.
So they sell a whole ecosystem.
Interface well with outside their ecosystem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of pains as well, like the memory in my devices is always too small. On Android, I just pop in a SD card. So
Yeah, indeed.
So they are very good at making people. They have fans, right?
Yeah, and that's why they can charge more. The willingness to pay of their friends is higher, so they can charge more. But it has less to do with this specific topic of overpricing because you remember more. Because in fact, if you really start looking to the features, you always go to Android because Android features phones from Samsung, for example. I think actually Samsung did this more than Apple. Samsung at one point started selling their top phones the same price or a little higher even as iPhone. Why did they do that? Because exactly for this point, like they were so much more expensive than the other competition from LG or anything that people started saying, what is different on this phone and why is it so close priced towards iPhone? And then you start comparing feature list and then you say, wow, Android can do much more. Then I'm willing to pay the higher price. I think Samsung did this better than iPhone. An example to wrap up, basically. So this is a case that really happened, where a supermarket, big supermarket in Europe, wanted to introduce a yogurt, home-branded yogurt, and they looked towards the competition, and they said, okay, looking towards the competition, we can charge roughly $1.99 for the yogurt. Then they had this experiment where they have their potential customers that were young mothers who wanted to buy yogurt for their children. That was their segment. They let them shop in a fake shop, and what they saw was that their yogurt was actually picked much more than they actually anticipated. So they went in and said, why did you do that? They did some user research. What triggered you to buy this kind of yogurt? And then they noticed that they wanted to make more profit on this yogurt. So they lowered the amount of sugar. It's a quite expensive thing to add. So they lowered the amount of sugar to have a higher margin for the same price. What they saw was that the moms buying yogurt for their children thought lower sugar content was more valuable than the rest of the competition. And then they said, okay, let's change the sleeve and the brand towards low in sugar. They found a new value element in your product and they raised the price because actually this unique feature, people wanted to buy more from it. And if you then can calculate that 1% price raise can have 11% profit raise, you know how much this gave to this company. Just by, it's a best practice example, of course. It's not always this easy and this simple, but it works. So, towards sales, it's very important that if you discovered, and this is actually the bridge to the previous one, if you discovered this value, you actually have to sell it as well. So you have to brand it low in sugar. You cannot just say somewhere, this should be really in focus, right? And it's the solution that you're selling, not just a product. And you have to have a good insight in the solution and the value that this brings to your company. And as some insights, an interesting one is the last one. If you do discounts, and I think that's something that you heard last week maybe too, it should be really either very limited in time or for a very limited product, or even better, don't discount in price, in numbers, but discount in a service that they get for free for a limited amount of time. Because this makes your cash flow bigger, and as a startup you know that cash is king, so your cash flow remains the same, and you actually trigger your customers to look at this free service that you deliver, and actually they might be potential customers for this service as well. So better, instead of discounting in price, discount in giving some extra value that you can sell later on. And then to wrap up, 3 things that I want you to remember. Like the first one is set up an engagement loop for your customers to get insight. Get insight from your customer segments. What is it that they value? What is value for them? How can we, as a company, bring value to them? Get these insights into these value curves that we saw, and start pricing from there, and start innovation from there. So aim your innovation on topics or on features that come from this customer user research. And the third one is consider your pricing. Really think about that. Dare to innovate in value capture. So the model of Nespresso, like how can we capture value? It can also be data that you capture that can be of value somewhere that you consider as a price already. And really see pricing also as something continuous. It's not that you put your price at one point at a certain amount. If your context changes or your competition changes, your price has to change as well. Can change as well.
Another question, would you consider it good practice to change pricing according to geography, like charge more or less in the Netherlands and for example?
The answer is, if you found in your research that your customers in Holland have a different value pattern than in Belgium, or if the willingness to pay is different because your context is different, because, for example, there is not a competition that is as close to you as in Belgium, then it's perfectly fine to do.
Okay,
but you should, that's an asterisk there.
It will build a perception with customers if they say like, hey, it's cheaper than...
Exactly my point. So then you should make it a hard wall that it's hard to get to the other side.
Okay.
Or you should frame the value different, frame your value proposition different for that specific type of customer. But it's perfectly legit to have different pricing models for different regions, but I would prefer to say customer segments. And if you see that your segment in Holland is different in some ways, then they can have a different product, or the product can be the same but it's framed different. But with this reframing, maybe the willingness to pay is different. But that totally depends on the context we're in. And then to end, it's an iterative process, so you have to build, test, learn, but that is something that you, I think, all know. Thank you very much. That's it for me today. I hope it was interesting.